Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India to become the third largest economy in the world by 2030, says S&P Global. Nominal GDP forecast to rise from $3.5 trillion in 2022 to $7.3 trillion by 2030. The United States and Sweden solidify their defense ties with signing of a cooperation agreement. India's lower house passes Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Bill 2023 and Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bills. S&P Global has projected that India would become the third largest economy in the world by 2030. Based on IMF data, India is currently placed at the fifth slot with the size of its economy at over $3.7 trillion. The list has US on top, followed by China, Germany and Japan. Earlier, S&P Global Market Intelligence has said that India's nominal GDP measured in USD terms is forecast to rise from $3.5 trillion in 2022 to $7.3 trillion by 2030. This rapid pace of economic expansion would result in size of the Indian GDP exceeding Japanese GDP by 2030, making India the second largest economy in the Asia-Pacific region. These remarks support the confidence expressed by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has repeatedly said that India would soon be the third largest economy in the world. And Lok Sabha, India's lower house, on Tuesday passed the Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Bill 2023 and Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bills. The Jammu and Kashmir Reservation Act provides reservation in appointment in state government posts and admission to professional institutions for certain reserved categories, while the Jammu and Kashmir Reorganization Act 2019 provides for the reorganization of the state of Jammu and Kashmir into the Union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. The bill increases the total number of seats in the Jammu and Kashmir Legislative Assembly from 83 to 90. Replying in the lower house, India's Home Minister Amit Shah said the 2 seats has been reserved for Kashmiri migrant community members.
2 सीटें कश्मीरी विस्थापितों के लिए होगी जो घाटी से विस्थापित हुए हैं और 1 सीट पाक ऑक्युपाई जम्मू कश्मीर के विस्थापित व्यक्तियों के लिए नामित की जाएगी। इसमें से एक महिला होना जरूरी है।
India's Home Minister Amit Shah said that 24 seats have been reserved for Pakistan-occupied Kashmir.
जम्मू में पहले 37 सीटें थी, अब 43 हुई है, 43 हुई है। कश्मीर में पहले 46 थी, अब 47 हुई है और पाक ऑक्युपाई कश्मीर की 24 सीटें क्योंकि वो हमारा है, हमने रिजर्व रखी है।
The 8th edition of the Global Technology Summit is taking place in New Delhi. The summit is convened to discuss questions related to technology, its impact on geopolitics, and policy issues related to new, critical, and emerging technologies. Other areas of discussion include cross-cutting policy issues related to innovation and national security. India, over the years, has digitized its health, education, as well as financial services. At the ongoing summit, India's Minister for Electronics and Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, said that India considers artificial intelligence as the biggest and most significant invention. He added that India considers AI to be kinetic enabler of the digital and innovation economy.
As we move forward and there are these new, more powerful technologies, emerging technologies that are going to come at us, I am concerned, as most of us should be concerned, that governments, when they react, they tend to overreact. And certainly in the final session, I made it clear that India's position is not to overly obsess and demonize AI and look at this only through the prism of safety and trust. We consider AI as the biggest, most significant invention in our times. We consider AI to be a kinetic enabler of the digital economy and the innovation economy. And we certainly believe that there is a case to be made to harness AI, to make AI deliver its potential.
On the sidelines of the Global Technology Summit in New Delhi, DD India correspondent spoke to Minister of State for External Affairs Meenakshi Lekhi on the role India globally could play in terms of technology and how the government plans to tackle the menace of deepfakes. Listen in.
At the Global Technology Summit, I'm joined by Minister of State for External Affairs Meenakshi Lekhi ji. Welcome to Doordarshan, ma'am. At the outset, I would like to ask you, how do you look at India's contribution to the world in terms of technology?
So India's contribution to the world in terms of technology has been immense. I don't want to get into the detail how Indian minds have been managing most of the cyberspace across boundaries. We have used cyberspace to bring that good governance model and bring a module to the world as to how India Stack Global can be a template for good governance, and more people join in, and other things like data protection, security by design, accessibility, all can be taken care of by this platform where 12 such projects are going on.
What is it that the government is willing to do to tackle these something like deepfakes?
So deepfake, cyber terrorism, using cyber technology for causing, for brainwashing people, causing fundamentalists or regime change, or non-state actors acting upon it. I mean, there are multitude of challenges and multitude of vulnerabilities. So right-thinking governments and right-thinking people need to come together to secure the technologies for the purpose for which these were made in the first place. And if these technologies are going to cause damage to the power structures of the states by non-state actors or rogue states, then we all need to cooperate and work together. The challenge, which is, say 99% of the global transactions are happening through undersea cables. Are we not going to protect it? Are we not going to protect supply chain mechanisms? Are we not going to work on biowarfare? So many vulnerabilities exist, and those vulnerabilities need to be worked at, including AI. And thus, rule of law, what we talk about in physical space, need to be operational on this also, so that the power wins it all cannot be the rule. The rule-based order is what we are looking at, not just in oceans, but also in cyberspace.
The Israeli army released videos on Wednesday showing ground troops operating in Gaza and aerial strikes on Hamas targets. This comes just a day after the military reached the heart of the southern Gaza town of Khan Yunis. The footage shows soldiers engaged in combat in residential area, armored vehicles moving and tanks firing ammunition. A video filmed inside a classroom showed soldiers revealing an explosive device that was placed inside a school. Aerial footage showed strikes on Hamas terrorists and command centers as per the Israeli army.
As the IDF expands its operations to dismantle Hamas in Gaza, we have not lost sight, not for one moment, of our critical mission to rescue our hostages, to do everything in our power to bring our hostages home. This is an urgent call for action. The international community must take action. The Red Cross must have access to the hostages that are in the hands of Hamas. 138 hostages, children, women, men, the elderly, have been in Hamas captivity for over 60 days, in brutal and inhumane conditions. Every day, every hour, every minute is critical.
As Israeli Defense Forces expand their operations in Gaza, the army spokesperson called on the international community to take urgent action to help free hostages. He added that every minute of hostage captivity endangered their lives. And also, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that he heard stories of sexual abuse at a meeting with hostages returned by Hamas during a recent pause in the fighting in Gaza. He called out on the women's and human rights organizations to act on it. Israeli police has released accounts of sexual violence in Hamas attack where victims were tortured and physically abused.
I say to the women's rights organizations, to the human rights organizations, you've heard of the rape of Israeli women, horrible atrocities, sexual mutilation. Where the hell are you? I expect all civilized leaders, governments, nations to speak up against this atrocity.
Taking you to UK now, where former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he was deeply sorry for the loss of life during the COVID-19 pandemic as he appeared as a witness as the official inquiry into Britain's handling of the pandemic. Johnson said at the start of the hearing that he was glad to give evidence and how sorry he was for the suffering of victims and their families as well. Italian teenage kiteboarder Andrea Principi triumphed in the Red Bull King of the Air title in Cape Town on Tuesday. Principi won the world's most extreme big air kiteboarding contest off the coast of Cape Town, South Africa, in front of a crowd of around 6,000 people. Global manufacturing activity remained in contraction territory for the 14th consecutive month despite a slight rise in November. The Global Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index stood at 48% in November, marking a slight increase of 0.2 percentage points from the previous month. As December 5 marked the 10th anniversary of the death of the first democratically elected president of South Africa, Nelson Mandela, South African actress, poet, and people from different facets of the society came together to reflect on what South Africans needed to do and Nelson Mandela's legacy today. A 42-year-old woman was killed and 2 others were injured in a shooting in East London. The shooting occurred in a small housing development in Hackney. The Metropolitan Police has launched a murder inquiry and no arrests have been made so far. And still to come on this edition of DD India Live. The United States and Sweden sign a defense cooperation agreement. Stay tuned to know more. Vladimir Putin visits UAE and Saudi Arabia in a rare trip abroad. Why? We will tell you. AI industry titans to gather for 8th Annual AI Summit New York in Manhattan to discuss industry's future.
We just don't bring you the news as it unfolds. We get to the heart of the matter.
We don't just present facts. We demystify complex social, political, and economic events.
We break stories that shape the world's present and future because you deserve the truth.
I am Tanvi Taneja from New Delhi.
I'm Ollie Barrett from London.
I'm Nick Harper from Washington, D.C.
Join us on DD India Global Monday to Friday at these times.
You're watching DD India Live. I am Siddharth Bharadwaj. The United States and Sweden have signed a defense cooperation agreement. U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and Swedish Defense Minister Pal Johnson met at the Pentagon before signing the agreement on Tuesday. The agreement comes as a Nordic country strengthens military alliances as it waits for approval from Turkey and Hungary to join NATO. In the meeting, Austin said both countries will continue to learn from each other, building defense capabilities and strengthening interoperability.
We're going to sign a defense cooperation agreement today, and that will embody our shared commitment to the defense relationship between our two proud democracies. We look forward to learning from each other as we continue to build our defense capabilities together and to strengthen our interoperability. Sweden has shown outstanding leadership in supporting Ukraine as it fights Russian aggression, including providing $2.7 billion in security and humanitarian assistance.
British Interior Minister James Cleverly signed a new treaty with Rwandan Foreign Minister in an attempt to overcome a court decision blocking its plan to deport asylum seekers from Britain to the East African country. The Rwanda scheme is at the center of the British government's strategy to cut migration and is being watched closely by other countries considering similar policies. Cleverly said there was now no reason to block the deportation flights because the treaty addressed all the issues, and that includes an agreement that Rwanda will not expel asylum seekers to a country where their life or freedom would be threatened. Russian President Vladimir Putin is in Abu Dhabi. Putin is visiting the UAE and Saudi Arabia in a rare trip abroad. Putin is currently holding talks with United Arab Emirates President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The Russian president will be holding talks with Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to discuss oil, OPEC Plus, and conflicts between Israel, Hamas, and Russia, Ukraine. Now, latest in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Russia's defense ministry claimed its forces shot down 2 Ukrainian MiG-29 fighters and 1 Mi-8 helicopter and intercepted an anti-radiation missile. Russian forces repelled Ukrainian offensives in Kupiansk, Lyman, and destroyed Ukrainian armored vehicles. On the same day, Ukraine armed forces claimed its armed forces destroyed Russia's electronic warfare systems. According to the Ukrainian officials, people's homes and commercial buildings were damaged by drone debris in various regions. The Australian government on Wednesday urged the opposition to support legislation regarding immigration detainees released after a landmark ruling by the country's top court. In a ruling last month, Australia's High Court had spoken about unlawful detention as there was no real prospect that the detainees could be removed from Australia. The ruling had overturned a 20-year-old ruling regarding the same issue. The proposed law will allow the government to refer non-citizen detainees to judges who will decide whether they pose a risk to the community. U.S. President Joe Biden said on Tuesday that he was undecided if he would run for re-election next year if Republican competitor Donald Trump did or not also run. Biden applauded the former Republican Senator Liz Cheney, who warned that the United States will be sleepwalking into dictatorship if former President Trump is re-elected. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and former U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley will face off at the 4th Republican presidential debate today. With Donald Trump up by more than 40 percentage points in most opinion polls, Trump said that he will not become a dictator if he becomes U.S. president again, except on day one. Former UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson is attending a public inquiry over his government's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Johnson apologized for the loss of life in the pandemic while delivering the statement in the inquiry. The inquiry has already heard damaging testimonies about Johnson's handling of crisis, and the former UK Prime Minister will now face 2 days of questioning as part of the official investigation into why Britain ended up with one of highest death tolls globally during the pandemic.
That I understand the feelings of these victims and their families, and I am deeply sorry for the pain and the loss and the suffering of those victims.
Today in Manhattan, AI industry experts will gather for the 8th Annual AI Summit in New York to forecast industry's trajectory. The summit, spanning 2 days, unites knowledge leaders, policymakers, and corporate executives for discourse and workshops. Amid a global push for tech regulation, it assumes significance. DD India's correspondent Sally Patterson delivers more details on this crucial conclave.
It's an opportunity to rub shoulders with some of the biggest names in AI. Representatives from technology companies, financial institutes and governments are set to hold talks and then stick around for networking afterwards. Tech giants including Microsoft, OpenAI and Google are all on the bill. Organisers say the summit, held on December 6th and 7th, will showcase how businesses are implementing and financing AI in a rapidly changing world. It comes just over a month after the UK held a major AI safety summit, looking at the risks of the economy and the industry. World leaders around the world are grappling with how to regulate it. In New York this week, the risks of AI will once again be in focus, tackling bias in technology, for example, but also opportunities for healthcare, finance, security, and more. Through speaker events, workshops, and feedback sessions, it's designed to be a very hands-on event. It promises to upskill employees through interactive and in-depth training sessions. And it is certainly an investment, with delegate tickets costing $2,400. Sally Patterson in New York, reporting for DD India.
The European Union has proposed an AI law to ensure consistent standards for AI systems across EU member states. The lawmakers meet on Wednesday to try to hammer out a deal on biometric surveillance and how to regulate systems like ChatGPT. The act sets out a number of requirements for AI systems, such as the need for them to be accurate, reliable and transparent. The European Union is racing to approve the world's first comprehensive AI law after the issue took on greater urgency when the ChatGPT bot burst onto the scene last year. UN climate chief Simon Stiell urged countries on Wednesday to agree on an ambitious action to tackle global warming at the COP28 climate summit rather than fall into the trap of point scoring and lowest common denominator politics.
The win on loss and damage here in Dubai gave this COP a spring in its step. But it is just the start. Now, all governments must give their negotiators clear marching orders. We need highest ambition, not point scoring or lowest common denominator politics.
The World Meteorological Organization released a report on the sidelines of UN climate conference COP28 on Tuesday. The report states that 2011-2020 was in the warmest decade on record, and the extreme weather events increased during that period. The report attributed the warming trend to rising concentrations of greenhouse gases, leading to extreme weather events and sea level rise. WMO Deputy Secretary General also warned that the trend will continue in the current decade and will lead to an increase in extreme weather patterns.
Of the global temperature, this decade is the warmest ever. It's 1.1 degrees Celsius average 10-year period, and it's every previous decade was also warmer than the preceding ones, and the amount of the natural disasters and weather and climate extremes, which we also monitor as a part of this state of climate, is again raises lots of concerns for us.
COP28 in Dubai, like its predecessor, COP26 in Glasgow, reveals a narrative of parallel strategies in addressing the global climate crisis. Scotland First Minister Hamza Yousaf said that he was pleased that a loss and damage fund was approved at COP28. Listen in.
We were so pleased to host COP26 in Glasgow in Scotland a number of years ago. And at that point, we were the first government in the global north to commit funding to loss and damages. And we said we're going to pressure the international community to make sure they also commit to loss and damage. So I'm very pleased that in the opening day at COP28 here in Dubai, an agreement was reached for loss and damage funding. And to me, that tells me that COP28 and the President, His Excellency, is very, very committed to starting COP in a very positive manner, building the momentum and getting as much international agreement as possible.
In the latest update on cyclone Migjom, the Indian Meteorological Department said Migjom has weakened into a deep depression over central coastal Andhra Pradesh. Despite the landfall in Andhra Pradesh, the southern and coastal districts of East Indian state of Odisha have been put on alert since Tuesday night with heavy rainfall forecast as severe cyclone Migjom moved northward. However, rescue and relief operations are underway in the affected areas with local authorities and disaster response teams working to assist those affected by the cyclone and subsequent flooding. The Air Force Station in Tambaram is continuing to provide humanitarian assistance to cyclone-affected areas. 4 helicopters carried out airdrops covering 16 locations of North and South Chennai. So far, close to 950 kilograms of relief material have been distributed by IAF. The Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra, aimed at disseminating information about various central government schemes, has reached in India's northern state of Himachal Pradesh, where a large number of beneficiaries of the schemes actively participated and share their experiences. Viksit Bharat Sankalp Yatra also reached in Nandpur village of India's state of Uttar Pradesh this afternoon. State Higher Education Minister Yogendra Upadhyay in a statement said that the image of India has changed in the world during the tenure of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He honoured the beneficiaries of many public welfare schemes of the government by giving them certificates. Asiatic Society of Bangladesh organized a seminar on a tale of friendship, 52 years of recognition to Bangladesh by India on Wednesday in Dhaka. On this occasion, Minister of Home Affairs of Bangladesh, Asaduzzaman Khan, was the chief guest. Bangladesh Home Minister in his address thanked India for its support and said that without India's active support, the war of liberation could not have been won in just about 9 months. Speaking on the occasion, High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh, Pranay Verma, said that liberation of Bangladesh changed the political map of South Asia, but more importantly, it also changed our psychological map. The European Union is facing a huge risk of terror attacks in the upcoming Christmas period, the bloc's Home Affairs Division warned on Tuesday. Ahead of a meeting of EU's Home Affairs ministers in Brussels, the Union's Home Affairs Chief Ylva Johansson said the war between Israel and Hamas and the polarization it causes in our society, and also with the upcoming holiday season, especially Christmas, there is a huge risk of terrorist attacks in the European Union. Johansson's assessment is based on the steep increase in extremist propaganda circulating online, as well as the rising threat level in member states amid recent attacks in Belgium and France. A Hong Kong-based research lab is trying to revolutionize the fashion industry by creating AI-generated clothes. More details in our next report.
Imagine a world where you could change the color of your clothes by making a simple hand gesture. This is what happened at the Milan Fashion Week, where models donned clothes made of a glowing fabric which combines yarn with polymeric optical fibers. The material has been developed by Aid Lab, which is a research platform established by the Hong Kong Polytechnic University and UK's Royal College of Art. It focuses on the integration of artificial intelligence and design.
The POFs are actually transmitters of light. So light travels from one point to the other. So with the light traveling from one point to the other, the usual POFs, you'll find that light is only emitted at the tips. But for us, we actually do a surface treatment so that the light actually also travels through the lateral side of the fabric.
The fabric contains an integrated camera which uses AI algorithms to generate colored illuminations. It can also be controlled by mobiles and remote. People can even project photos from their phones onto the fabric. The textile has created waves across the fashion world, but its makers feel that the multi-sensory technology behind it can also help the medical industry.
Multisensory stimulation is something that is very common for, it's a form of well-being for a lot of people with dementia, people with learning challenges. So it actually encourages their well-being and gives them a sense of calm, and also a very easy way for them to have engagement and direct response.
Researchers also underscore the textile's sustainability benefits and say that it could reduce clothing waste. Anu Kaushik for DD India.
All right, and that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Siddharth Bharadwaj, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.